Welcome to the Inside Out podcast. I'm Michelle, a life designer coach, nutritional therapist, leader in Run Fitness, and host of the Inside Out podcast, bringing wisdom and experiences from inspirational people, fellow entrepreneurs, and from within my own life journey, supporting you around the globe to elevate your health and well-being and achieve the life you want to achieve. This week, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to talk to Dan Sawyer. Dan is founder of Calm the Water and specializes in acupuncture, Thai Na massage, and cupping therapy. Acupuncture has been practiced for over 3,000 years and has proven beneficial on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Dan started his practice in 2018, offering treatments that are specifically geared towards energetic, emotional, and mental well-being. He has been taught by some of the most renowned TCM practitioners in the UK, including John and Angie Hicks, Peter Mole, Dr. Song, and Professor Key. So without further ado, please welcome Dan. Hello.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
So, Dan, for all of our listeners, can
Mhm.
you just share a little bit more about your journey? What inspired you to become an acupuncturist and how you developed an interest in mental health and well-being?
Of course. I was a late comer to acupuncture. I found it about 15, maybe 18 years ago. And it was a conversation about healing somebody's soul. And at the time, that sentence just sort of blew my mind because it's not something that we are taught, or, it's not something that's part of Western civilization. We don't really think about, treating somebody's soul. And that led to me sort of diving into the rabbit hole of acupuncture and all things energetic, energetic healing like Reiki and that sort of stuff. And I started the course actually in 2011, but due to reasons, personal reasons, I couldn't finish. They say that when your time is right, you'll know, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. It was just not right for me. I remember thinking, to be a practitioner, to be somebody who is classed as a healer, you have to have some level of calm within yourself, right?
Mm.
There's a great saying that I use all the time, which is, the healthiest tree gives the best fruit. So if you want to, give the fruits of your healing ability, you have to make sure that you're looking after yourself first. So I found it really hard to study and just couldn't finish it. And then about 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to change my life and sort of concentrate on, where I wanted to go. Um, it's a funny story actually. I was in Australia, sort of finding myself and getting over some trauma and stuff. And whilst I was out there, I it came to me that I should now's my time to follow my path. And I asked the universe, I asked God, whatever we class up there. I just asked for a sign. I said I need to just give me a push in the right direction.
Mm.
Because at the time I was actually a gas engineer, which was a great career, and it just I spent more time talking to people in their houses than I did actually fixing stuff. So I always knew that I was more of a people person anyway. Anyway, I asked the question the day before I was due to fly back, and I sat on the plane, and there was a Chinese guy sitting next to me. He was actually an American neuroscientist, and we started talking about consciousness and all that sort of stuff. And he said, without prompting, he said to me, the problem that we've got today, because the conversation naturally fell to sort of holistic and energetic, healthcare and stuff. And he said, without prompt, the problem that we've got is that kids in China, they all want to be YouTubers or footballers, or they want to be famous now. No one's actually following in their father's footsteps. And he says, as a result, we've got a lack of acupuncturists in the world.
Oh,
Yeah. And I said, so what you're saying is we need more acupuncturists? He said, yeah, that's what we need. And I just thumbs up to the universe, like, okay, I got it. So I came home, instantly got onto the course, and 3.5 years later I was qualified.
I mean, that's just a truly amazing journey. And I'm just curious, and probably digressing slightly from topic here, but many, where I say that we're following our vocation, our true purpose, we have gone through some sort of trauma. And do you think you were open? Do you think that everybody needs to go through trauma, or that actually at some point you just have to really home in and take out the noise of the world and sit with nature, and then you get that calling, that divine inspiration, whatever you want to say? I know for me, I very much just kind of was empty for a good few days after having some healing and had no idea. And then my mind was a bit more open and decluttered.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that to be fair, in my experience over the last few years, trauma is just a part of life. I think obviously it's all very individualized, and what is traumatic to someone may not be to someone else. Um, so I think that we've all experienced some level of trauma. Um, with regards to having to go through some sort of trauma to find that, I think, yes, I think it definitely helps, because there's a coping mechanism, isn't there, with when we experience trauma. And more often than not, the first thing that we need to do is come home to ourselves. And that also must be a gateway into then listening to the inner voice. Um, but yeah, I think it's very important that people start listening to that inner voice and that calling, because once you find it, I've got two teenage boys, and one of them is just about to hit his GCSEs, and there's a lot of pressure. And I just keep saying to them, that you've got to chase the happiness. That's what you've got to focus on, nothing else, because society is very geared towards the more money you make, the more happy you'll be, right? And there's some truth in that, but I was a gas engineer and I wasn't happy. My soul was not fulfilled. So, I do think that coming home and giving yourself that space is vital in finding your calling.
Beautiful, beautiful. So going back to sort of like the acupuncture,
Yeah.
you've mentioned it more around mental health and well-being. Did you have, like, within the course, specific training for that, or have you developed that over time? And when I say developed, it's very much going with the notion: you try, you fail, you learn from it. How did we sort of like did that journey come through?
Well, as I said earlier, the whole inspiration, or yeah, I suppose inspiration for me to become an acupuncturist was the fact that it can treat your soul. So the mind, that saying of mind, body, soul, right? Mind, body, spirit, whatever you want to call it. We are a whole being. That's three parts of us that is very much, integral in our being healthy, right? So right from the off, the first thing, there was moments during that course that were just so poetically beautiful, that it would literally blow my mind. And it started straight away with learning about the connection between the spirit and the body, you know. And of course, the mind is right in the middle of that. You know what I mean? So we were trained right from the off. And I will give a shout out actually to the College of Integrated Chinese Medicine in Reading. Just amazing. They held us through this course. You know what? The transformation that we went through, that everybody goes through, when you're chasing when you're pursuing your calling, is just huge. And they were obviously, experienced in doing that. So they really sort of held us and looked after us. And it was just a whole package. We did a lot of Western medicine, obviously, because we need to be safe when we're practicing and understand, ailments and conditions. But there was so much emphasis on the brain, you know, and the mind.
It's just, I mean, I find the whole mind, body, soul connection is something that I think is only now that we're touching the surface and not really getting deeply into it and educating.
Yeah,
And you mentioned like boys, you've got two teenage boys, I've got two boys too, and it's shocking the statistics of how much pressure they're on and the mental health they're suffering. And, you know, at the end of the day, I've had different roles, and like yourself, you've had different roles. It just takes time. So, you know, having that support, certainly through holistic therapies, I think is huge, and building up the community.
definitely. Just to jump in there, I think that you know, the problem that we're facing, we had through the centuries, we've had like our parents were, I think, like the last sort of generation that were like, get a job, keep your head down, say
Yeah.
nothing. And then you had the sort of Gen X, you know, the 80s and 70s, 80s and 90s kids that were like, we're not we're not investing in this, you know, we're not doing this. So we sort of all sort of rebelled a bit. And I think that our kids now, they're the ones that are going to come through with this newfound purpose. And I think a big, this is just a opinion, but I think a
Mhm.
huge part of mental health in our youngsters nowadays is because society is geared towards 9 to 5, working your ass off in a job you don't really like, just to get that, just to survive. And these kids are they're stuck now because they've got this. Like my kids certainly have the influence of um, opting out of the system. This is not how
Mhm.
human beings should be living our lives, right? It's like the education system. You it's that whole thing of, you know, you've got all the different animals taking a test, and it's like the one who gets an A is the one who gets up to the top of the
Mhm.
tree, right? And the fish and the giraffe are not gonna, and I think that's just so you know, so obvious in our kids now. They're not treated as individuals, you know, and I think it's a huge part of mental health nowadays.
Mhm. And that kind of leads quite nicely onto my next question, which mental health and well-being generally is very individualized to each person. So you've talked about acupuncture being holistic and using that energy system. Do you use anything that you follow that's more made specifically tailored to the individual, or is it, look, the research has just said we kind of like do this holistic way and you will see benefits?
Well, the whole thing about holistic health care is that it is individualized, and it has to be tailored to the person sitting in front of you. I can have, so for instance, fibromyalgia, right? You know, you can have 5 people come to me and say, I've got fibromyalgia, and their symptoms will manifest differently. So you can't really, and we was never taught that this is what you do if somebody is depressed. These are the points that you do if somebody has IBS. It's never really that blanketed, and that's what I love about it. You know, people come to me and they spend an hour and a half, and for that time, it's whatever they need. Obviously, there's research that we have to do
Mm.
patient research beforehand, you know, after we've done a diagnosis. But it's beautiful in the way that you get held, you as a person, regardless of your symptoms. You know, it's funny, people give me these words, you know, that they've been diagnosed with, and I'm like, great, what are your symptoms? You know,
Mm.
we're taught to ask what the symptoms are. If somebody says IBS, that's not enough information for us, you know, because it manifests all differently. So yeah, it's definitely, um, you know, it's definitely the individual is how we need to treat people, regardless of what practice we are doing. It has to be. It just has to be like that, you know.
Which I think, yeah, I totally am in agreement with that. And one of the things that I've been reading is the body keeps score.
Mm,
And I think that is kind of, that messaging is very underutilized
mm,
on social media, is that it doesn't matter, as you say, what type of journey you've had. And very much this is post-traumatic stress of veterans, you know, and war people, where they look on the outside absolutely fine. They're going through the motions, and then something will just go, and the body holds absolutely everything. It holds, and the mind holds it. And this is where it can happen to everybody. It doesn't matter whether or not, you know, your dad shouted you it the wrong way. Just that once, it can, you know, be with you for the rest of your life. And as sort of like taking it to the parenting side of things, you don't always get it right. Nobody does,
No,
but you can only do your best.
that's right.
Where having this holistic approach and the energy and the soul can help just calm that, you know, desanitize the energy levels. Very much you can always be running on that treadmill up here,
Yeah.
but it's not doing you any favors, because it's all about the mind, the vagus nerve, and the stimulating. And there has been so many people that are doing different, like cold therapy, acupuncture, sound bath, are all looking at it holistically, but it all comes back to your body remembers everything.
That's right. And it's so important to listen to yourself. This is like touching on what we were saying earlier about sort of finding your calling. It's the same thing when you're, you know, when you're dealing with PTSD and you're trying to process. You know, some people. I'm a talker, right? So I talk my way through stuff and find, you know, answers that way. But some people aren't. You know, some people don't like to share, and they've got to find another way of getting through that, what is being held in the body. You know, you can treat all day long. You can treat the physical symptoms, right? But if you don't get to the root, then they're just going to keep. It's just maintenance, then, isn't it? You know, so we have to, as not just as acupuncturists, but any sort of therapist or practitioner, we have to get to that root of what's causing, you know, the symptoms and the manifestation.
So just to put it in more layman's terms,
Mm.
because I mean, both myself and you, you know, you obviously are an acupuncture therapist. I've had acupuncture.
Mm.
Just for the listeners that never have come across or have vaguely not known what is acupuncture, can you give us a sort of layman's terms of what it is?
Yes, I'll try. So, so the body is made up of meridians, which are energy channels, and this is where the points are. And we have, it's like it. So the easiest way to explain it is if you imagine a mountain, and at the top of the mountain you have the stream, which then finds its way down into a river, which then finds its way into an ocean, right? So we have the similar. It's a sort of, it can be likened to how the body works, right? So if that stream is blocked and there's a few obstructions, it's not going to flow as freely as possible, which is going to affect the river and then not get to the ocean. And what we need to do by using certain points and and other stuff as well, we need to make the energy flow freely through the body. We can, like I said earlier, we can treat symptoms. You know, that's something that we do all the time, but we have to look at where the blockages are and what's stopping it. So trauma and PTSD, you know, there's that trauma that is stuck, and then that manifests. So it's really, I mean, it's quite complex when it comes to PTSD and trauma, because it's just devastating to people, you know. So it's not a matter of a couple of points here and there and you'll be fine. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to go into it. But acupuncture basically looks at imbalances. So for instance, if you are, so you know the yin and yang symbol, right? It's so simple, but it's so complex as well. So in acupuncture, there is usually something that is too much or something that is not enough. And what acupuncturists do is they look to find how to find that balance, regardless of the condition. There's an imbalance somewhere.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Now, obviously, the recommendation is to go to an acupuncturist, but is there anything that, you know, if say people are feeling overwhelmed, they can't take a moment to kind of really access the breathing just because perhaps they're in a meeting or something, Is there any sort of like specific acupuncture points that you could share that you found beneficial? I don't know, like tapping on top of the head to release a headache, or, you know, touching something in your thumb. I don't know.
Yeah, you sound like you do know. Yeah, there's a few. So I work part-time in a charity, for a charity, that deals with a lot of mental health support. And obviously anxiety and depression is amongst 95% of the people there. So yeah, there's a few points that I sort of use, because you can like you say, you can hold acupuncture points. We call it acupressure, without, so you don't need a needle, you can just hold the point yourself, and it will have a similar effect. It will be diluted, it won't be as potent as if you've had a needle in that point. I will just point out for the listeners though that we call them needles. They're not, they're more like pins. They are so thin, they're like smaller than a hair. And it's yeah, so you can do this. So there's a couple of points that I use. One of them is on the wrist, just underneath your pinky finger. So if you hold your hand up and you go underneath on this wrist crease here, right
Mhm.
underneath, there's a bone just at the bottom of your wrist, and just you want to go inwards and downwards on that wrist crease. So I mean, with a thumb, you're not really going to miss it, So as long as you can feel that bone there, and then you just come inside and hold it there, that can help. Now, obviously, the meridians run both down both sides of the body. So if you push this one and it doesn't really feel like anything's happening, and you try the other one, it's whichever side is more tender. That's the side that you would hold for longer.
Oh, so for the listeners, I've just done that. So you get your hand up and you put it on your finger side, and you go all the way down to your wrist, and you got your little knobbly bit. Let's put it as the little knobbly bit. Go in a little bit with your thumb and just hold that. And I've done it on my left hand, and I was like, okay. I have phenomenal pain in my right
Yeah.
side of my body anyway.
Yeah.
So I've just done it on the right hand, and actually there is a difference. So it really does actually show. And yeah, we have a conversation
Yeah.
about what this means, but no, it's definitely just a very simple technique just to give it a
Yes.
try for everybody.
Yeah. And there's another one as well, which if you take three fingers, and on
Mhm,
that wrist crease, you put three fingers from that wrist crease downwards, then just directly underneath the third finger,
mhm.
if you hold that as well, that can calm anxiety.
Oh wow.
And so does this one as well. This is good for depression and sleep as well. It's really good for sleep. But this one here is, when you're all up in your head, and you need to calm, that can help as well.
It's just absolutely fabulous, because sometimes if you're doing a presentation in the middle of the corporate fast-paced world
Mhm.
and you've got to go and present, a lot of people freak, because public speaking is one of the number one fears that most people have,
Really?
where clearly you and I don't have a problem talking to people.
Mm.
Um, so that would be something that you could do and people wouldn't notice. So again, three fingers, just then a bit further down of your wrist. And again, notice the difference. I noticed the difference.
Wow, brilliant. That'll be 54.95.
So
Thank you. You can send me cash. Yeah.
do you, we talked very much about holistic sort of treatment,
Mm.
or looking at the individual holistically. Acupuncture is one modality. Have you worked with other wellness practices or make any recommendations to your clients that would be beneficial?
As in people that I've worked with.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm building up a community. I'm a life and nutrition coach, but I know, and I'm obviously a physio, a qualified physio, not practicing.
Mhm.
And I know that that clients and people need to be looked from the inside out. And what I'm building, like with yourself, is where I'm perhaps coaching a client to then go, okay, well, I'm sensing this. Have you thought about this? Is it that you use other modalities within your actual acupuncture practice, or have you experienced more success when you're looking at not just acupuncture but other methods?
Well, without blowing the trumpet of acupuncture, it sort of covers all bases. I'm also qualified in Tweenar. You said, what did you call it earlier? Tunar. It's Tweenar.
Tweener, sorry.
Felt weird, isn't it? Yeah. So Tweenar massage, which is Chinese medical massage, which again is just that physical working of the meridians and releasing stuff. I'm also qualified in cup therapy, which is like that deep, deep tissue massage and removing of toxins from the muscles and bringing old blood to the surface, and also Reiki as well. So a part of our degree in Chinese medicine is basic Chinese nutrition. So with a person that is got sort of damp in their system, then we look at their diet and sort of we can obviously not in the sort of depth that you could do, but to help our treatment plans we can give that sort of advice. So for the last, I've been practicing now since qualified for about a year and a half. I was in student clinic for about a year, so I've been practicing for nearly 3 years, and so far I'm getting good results on my own. So sorry.
Excellent. No, it's good to hear, because obviously it isn't just, as you say, sticking needles in or
No.
pins in. It is that you've developed your own through your journey. And certainly I think everything has benefits. Quite intriguing though. As an acupuncturist, how do you prioritize your own well-being?
Oh, good shout. It's something that in the charity that I work in, obviously the link workers, the support workers, my colleagues, I'm constantly running around telling them to calm down and to let things go, and professional boundaries to keep your energy safe and stuff. So I mean, what I do, my diet is the one thing that I need to sort out. I'm still drinking a lot of tea with one sugar, and I'm partial to a cake or four. So that's something that I'm working on at present. But what I do really is meditate. So breath work and meditation is really how I keep myself feeling well, because it's taking that time every day, sometimes twice a day, taking that time to just sit and breathe. And this is part of the problem of society, especially now we've got this social media craze, and this addiction, this digital addiction where we're constantly stimulated, and we need to just stop. So I find for me that meditation is what keeps me feeling mentally healthy.
It's interesting. This goes back to something we talked about earlier at the start of our conversation. When I was a kid, we didn't, obviously there wasn't the internet and social media, and I've grown with it as I've got older, because you need to move with the times. But very much I was always very creative, out in nature. It would always be the Sunday roast dinner with your grandparents, and then they would overcook the veg, but then you would have like a salad and ham salad with jelly and blancmange, and then jam sandwiches for your supper type thing.
Yeah.
And I just curious, I suppose, from your perspective as well, with your sort of your role as an acupuncturist and your part-time job. I think, and I strongly believe, that we are going to go full circle, where we are going to, and hopefully it could be in our children, have that breed of, no, don't want, we want to go back to the roots and to our ancestors, and and the cavemen, where you're actually looking for your produce, and you could go for days with starving, and then you really have the gratitude of feeding your body and your mind and your soul.
Yes.
So I'm just curious. Do you think that that might be on the horizon?
I've hoped for many years now that yes, that we're going to get to that point. You mentioned the word gratitude. This is another thing that is massively missing. Being grateful. I I really struggled. So about maybe 2004, 2005, I was a young man and had no real direction. I don't like to call it a spiritual awakening, because it's sort of been tainted now, and I don't believe that one person is more spiritual than another. When people say I'm not spiritual, you have a spirit. You are a spiritual being. You are spiritual, right? Just some of us are more in tune than others. Some of us are more interested in it than others, right? But I had a bit of a crash because the way that society is geared is just so far away from what you've just spoken about, right? There's no gratitude for our food. There's no real gratitude for being, right? So for years and years, I was really angry because I never classed myself as an intelligent above anybody else. I've always sort of been one of the crowd. So when I had my awakening, or my coming home to my soul, and I realized that actually ego is just over, it's like everyone's ego's on steroids nowadays, and that's not what I'm about. And love, and the simple things is really what my heart and soul was sort of pulling me towards. I was getting angry with people that they couldn't see the same, right? And then it took years for me to realize that I'm causing conflict, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you're really intelligent, and I don't see myself as it. Why can you not see? And then you go through the learning of awareness, and people's level of understanding is due to their level of awareness, and they can only meet you on their own level of awareness. And I feel like over the years, over the last 15 years, um, there's been this beautiful increase in um, coming home and understanding that humans, we can do a lot better, and we don't need a lot. We need the simple stuff. We need to be warm and sheltered. We need to be fed, and we need to be chasing our calling, right? And giving the gifts that we're given to the world. There's so much, so many amazing people that have been sucked into the system, and their day job now is draining the life out of them, and the world is missing out on the gift, whatever that is, whether it be music or painting, or whatever it is, something creative. Human beings, in my opinion, Michelle, are creative. That's what we do. We create stuff. And you get, look, you do get people that find their calling, like a plasterer, like a master plasterer. That could be his calling, and he could, and he makes the insides of houses look amazing. And as long as that person's fulfilled, there's 7 billion of us, right? So every one of us is going to have something that will benefit the rest of us. And I think that, yes, I think we're slowly getting there, to the point where having a nice car and being in a rap video is so far away from actually what your soul or your heart wants. Do you see what I mean? So yes, I'm hoping that at some point, I mean, there's a lot of talk amongst the community, that actually it is the end of times. It is the end of what we know as life on this planet. What we've been over the last 200 years, what we've been sort of suppressed by and put into. We are coming to the end of that. The veil is lifting, as they say. So fingers crossed, we get to be part of it.
Beautiful. So I suppose, like, what's next? What's your vision? I mean, we've talked about the vision of how we think it's going to evolve, but what's your vision for yourself for Calm the Water? How do you see that growing?
Well, I'm waiting on a record deal any day now, because I want to be a rapper. So
Oh, really?
no, I'm joking. So
Wow.
well, you was at the
Sound
retreat.
therapy as well as acupuncture.
You was at the spiritual spa retreat, wasn't you? So you
I
got
was.
to experience some of my poetry. But yeah, no. My vision for Calm the Water is literally, this is what I've been manifesting the last few months, is 10 patients a day. That's a lot. That's going to kill me. But so going back to what you were saying about, you know, coming full circle, what I realized, so when I was angry and shouting at people and like, wake up, we need to change the world, like this is not good, we shouldn't be living like this, it's because I was saying, you know, without realizing it, I was saying, you're amazing, you could save the world. Right, you know, so then when I came home to my soul and started meditating, you know, I was like, okay, so what do I do? What's my ripple that I put out into consciousness, and how do I change the world within my little space on this planet? And yeah, so I'm just manifesting. That's why then the acupuncture and all that eventually came to it, because that's my giving to the world, right? Healing without side effects, you know, naturally healing. So I've lost what I was saying. So where do I see calm the water? Yeah, 10 patients a day. You might, could you imagine, you know, treating between 40 and 50 people a week and having the majority of them, you know, feel instant benefits and you know, getting to feel better within themselves. And you know, I'm a little bit frustrated actually with my part-time job at the charity, because we are a support network for the service users, and it's lovely. What we do is we hold space, and we run groups, and what we do is for 2 hours we say, look, you know, come on, let's go and have some fun, or you know, we have one-to-ones where it's almost counseling, you know, where we sit and talk and hold space for them. And I'm just itching. I'm like, we can do more for these people, but we're not allowed to do invasive,
No.
right? I have been putting it, you know, gently putting it to the powers that be, that we, you know, if we could get some funding, I could treat these people, you know, with acupuncture.
And you've got so much research to actually support that.
Exactly. Yes. I did. My dissertation actually was on whether acupuncture can reduce the need for antidepressants. And you know, and ultimately what I was getting at is, can we get people out of depression with acupuncture?
Interesting. And because I'd like to just put into the mix, there's various things, and my listeners know that myself and my family, we have very much lots of learnings and development. And my youngest son has been diagnosed with pyrrole disorder,
Right.
which isn't commonly known. And it's but it very much presents as ADHD. And I hear your frustration about the gratitude and what you can do, because I find it very hard to manage my frustration when I've been on that journey, particularly with my own children. I'm like, you're being really ungrateful here, you know, but you're not putting out that side of things. And I'm wondering and just seeing whether or not perhaps part of your vision, and you can manifest it, is how can we research, you know, experiment, trial and error to help perhaps many children that and adults now, even more so adults that have been boxed in this ADHD spectrum, and could acupuncture help with that? Because certainly for pyrrole disorder, it is a chemical imbalance that will need supplements and it's gut health.
Mhm.
But they're looking at it holistically and the energy levels. I'm just wondering whether or not that might be something in the mix.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely. The problem that we have is that we have this society that is run on profit. So the pharmaceutical industry, this is a whole nother podcast, right? But talking about the pharmaceutical industry and the control that it has over civilization is just very disturbing. So to get that sort of research is just going to be a nightmare. You know, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but I can't see it being anytime soon. You know, there's that saying, isn't there, that a cured patient is a lost customer.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that's the narrative, we are fighting a war. So I think it's I would love to be a part of that movement, but for now it's a bit out of my remit, I think.
Never say never. You never know. After listeners, they might go, I'm intrigued to find out if it does help.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Just before we wrap up, I suppose really, is there anything that's dear to your heart that we haven't covered about acupuncture, the benefits of acupuncture, your work that you want to share with us all?
What's dear to my heart is humans. I just think that we all have this amazing ability to be. And no, I just yeah, I think that everyone is amazing, and it's sometimes the water's just a bit muddy, or the water's a bit rough in a person, so we need to calm the water to see their plug in
Okay,
myself.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah, no, but I just, yeah, that's what's really close to my heart, and ultimately why I am where I am right now. But I think what I would like to leave your listeners with is that in the fight against, mental health disorders, whatever people are facing, there are three things that we can do ourselves which give us a fighting chance, and they are simply, as you know, nutrition. Our diet is massively important. What we put in our body manifests outwards. Um, and the second thing is exercise. Even if it's a walk a day, this is daily, right? This is things that we have to do daily. So some sort of exercise, and you'll find that once you start doing some sort of exercise or some sort of movement, that your body will start thanking you for it, right? It's like nutrition. When you get to a certain point where you suddenly feel, oh wow, your body gives you some gratitude for what you're putting in, and it's the same with exercise. Once you start, doing it, you see the benefits, and you start to feel a lot better. And the
I
third.
liken that
Mm,
to the analogy that you said, which is the body is made of systems and flows, and what acupuncture does is try help release those flows.
yeah,
Well, actually, movement. It doesn't have to be going out for a major run. It can be a walk. It can be a yoga. It could be just simply sitting at your desk and moving some joints around. But it helps with that energy flow throughout your body, which is where we go to the mind, body, soul connection.
there you go, exactly right. And the third one is mindfulness. Now meditation is amazing. I say this all the time to my service users, because it's meditation is just, I can't talk about it enough. But it can be sitting, when it's like a summer storm and you've got the windows open and you're just listening to the rain, and you've got that beautiful sense of calm.
Mm.
That's meditation. Putting on your favorite playlist and losing yourself in music, that's a form of meditation. There are so many ways of doing it that we need to, it's basically taking time out of your day to forget about what you need to do tomorrow, forget about next week's meeting or the kids lunch tomorrow. It's just taking 5-10 minutes a day where you just sit and breathe. I mean,
Mm.
that's the best thing for me, is that's always what grounds me and centers me back in my inner, is just to concentrate on my breath,
Mm.
right? Because we do it all day long and we pay it no attention at all. And when you consciously breathe and connect to your breath, you instantly connect to your body, which then you can't help but connect to your soul or your spirit,
Mm.
right? And then the more you do it, the better you feel.
Mm. And I think that's beautiful because, again, it's the long upheaval of meditation has always been you've got to sit for hours in silence,
Mhm.
and people struggle. And it's like, well, actually, you can do meditation walking.
Yes.
You can have, there's loads of free apps, guided meditations,
Yeah.
and just something that, simply as even somebody going breathe in for 4, out for 4, in for 4, and you're
Mm.
just listening to that, even if, you're putting on your makeup or your clothes to go to work or something, you just go, you're listening to that drum beat, because actually it does go in, and you don't have to carve out hours of your day to sit in silence and cross-legged, and that perception. And I know certainly in my practices, I am getting people and my clients to really just go, even if you get out of bed 5 minutes earlier and just sit in your pajamas
in bed
before you do anything and set your intention for the day. That is meditation. That is taking time, grounding, and ready to go.
Yeah, brilliant. They say that if you haven't got time to meditate for 5 minutes a day, you must meditate for an hour a day because you're too busy, right? Everyone's got 5-10 minutes in the morning.
Yeah.
They just do.
They do. All right. So thank you for coming on the show. And for all my listeners, I know I have found this interview very supportive, and do hope you take forward some of this knowledge and tips to support you or somebody else that you may feel could benefit from their journey in mental health or mind, body, soul experience and well-being. In the show notes, I will include Danny's contact details. And to elevate your health and well-being from inside and out is an individualized, holistic journey. So please connect with myself and to Dan to see how further we can support you. Because, as I say, I work with all my partners to help everyone to optimize their lifestyle to achieve their goals. If you've liked this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show, share, and follow us on social media. And as always, I thank you for listening.